Have you ever met Miss Lindy? She's a gal with the bright red hair. Now she stands out from all the rest. You know her anywhere. Where she's mine. Yeah, she's mine. Well, I love that little
Welcome to
girl.
Victory PodCast, a podcast hosted by your favorite pie company where we discuss all things life, small business, and of course, pie. My name is Bailey. I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Victory Pie Company's owner and founder, Sheila Blue. Hi, Sheila. How you doing?
Hi, Bailey. Doing great. Excited to be here for today.
We're glad to have you. This week, we're going to be talking about something that I think all of us are in desperate need of, which is how to eat within a budget. With the rising cost of everything from a gallon of gas to a gallon of milk, we're all feeling it in our wallets and in our refrigerators too. And Sheila, you have a bunch of experience in making a budget, sticking to it, and cooking within that budget. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, thanks, Bailey. I'm excited. This is one of those topics I can nerd out on all day. Funny enough, and like in our last podcast, we were talking about when I used to be a stay-at-home mom. I did meal plans, stretched our budget, and like I said before, I used to stretch a penny so far you could hear Lincoln scream. That's what I used to tell people. So we had to do what we had to do. We were raising 3 boys at the time, so just meal planning, other things that we did definitely to save money, and I think. Some of the biggest helps to me at that time, and these are great for anybody, whether you're single, whether you're a couple, whether you've got kids, don't have kids, work inside, outside the home, it doesn't matter. I think there's some things that everybody can do that are small things, but they add up in the long run for savings. And like you said, right now, everybody's looking, where we can save a penny for sure.
Yeah.
And I think one of those things for me was meal planning, and that can be overwhelming. Funny enough, so when I meal planned, we didn't have. I'm dating myself, but all the Google, Google how to meal plan, internet, all that. So went to a lot of books. Actually, talked to a lot of older women who had done things for years with their families and learned from them. Honestly, went to their houses and saw how they did it, and went from there. And I think that can be daunting for some people that don't necessarily cook or cook on a regular basis, like to cook, know how to cook, or maybe they've got really busy schedules and don't have time. So I think one of the ways I would, what would you call it? Modify. Thanks. Sorry, I was drawing a blank on my word there today. Modify, even meal planning. Again, that can be daunting. Doing a month's worth. I used to do monthly meal plans, believe it or not, monthly meal plans. And I was able to spend $400 a month to feed my family of 5.
Wow.
And that wasn't, 20, 30 years ago. That was as much as 10 years ago. But I know things have drastically changed in that time. But even that, what can be done to help modify that would be to plan even just 3 nights a week. So, or maybe purchase a protein, a meat, a protein, or whatever your choice of, your lifestyle, however your diet is, one of the main things that you eat, a large quantity of it, and break it up to use it in a few dishes over the week. So for instance, maybe a ground beef or a pork roast or something like that. You can do it in a variety of ways. But you could take that one type of meat, break it in, use it into 3 different ways, and then you've saved money because when you buy something in a larger quantity, you pay less per pound generally for it. So that's a way to do it if you don't want to bust out a whole, meal plan, take an entire day to cook. And so I will say what I used to do, I used to take 1 day a month and I cooked all day. It was an 8-hour day for me, but in 8 hours, I could meal plan and plan out and make enough meals for us to get through a month. And when I say a month, it wasn't 30 dinners. It was enough. And we offset some nights for leftovers. Of course, we ordered pizza sometimes. We did, fit our lifestyle. And we ate out sometimes. So a month of meal planning isn't necessarily 30 nights of dinner. But that can definitely be adjusted. There's lots of great things out there for meal planning, but that was one of the hugest money savers because you're buying ingredients that can be used in several dishes and not be wasted. And so, for instance, even a no waste situation, if I was going to make a dish or a salad or something, and I was using, carrots and celery and onions and that kind of thing. Well, I used what I used in the dish, and then the leftovers are like the tops of the celery that weren't used in that, or even the ends of the carrots and the pieces of the onion and all that you wouldn't necessarily use to put in the dish or eat. You could throw it in a pot and boil it and make a stock, and you can freeze that stock and use it later to cook rice, flavor your rice with, or something like that. So there's lots of little ways to have little to no waste when it comes to certain things. And even those last little bits of meat. So I had 4 guys and myself. So a lot of meat got eaten in my house, but we'd have leftovers. So like there'd be a random pork chop here and maybe a rib there or a piece of a steak or something here or there. We would actually take those and chop up those random little pieces of meat, dice them up and turn them into fried rice. And you just have a hodgepodge of, all it takes is an egg, some rice, whatever the random meat is, and some soy sauce. So it's like just even that, you can kind of take what you've got and throw it all into a dish and turn it into something so you're not throwing food away. You're not wasting your hard-earned money and everything's getting eaten. To me, that was one great way we saved money and still do to this day. Kids are out the house, but my husband and I, we have a leftover day once a week and we just eat the leftovers. We mishmash everything. And that way, veggies don't go turn to liquid in the bottom of the fridge. We all have had that happen, right?
Every month.
Without fail. Exactly. So it's like, even that, if you're not going to use them or the dish you meant to use them for, you didn't, at the very least, take it, rinse it, chop it all up and throw it in a pot, boil it and strain it out. And you've got a stock for anything, just even a veggie stock you can use for a soup later. Just throw it in your freezer, put it in a bag. That way there's no waste and you don't feel, like you're defeating yourself. Cause even those veggies are getting expensive at the grocery store. You don't want to see them go bad. Yeah. So that's definitely what, even if that's once a week, clean out your drawers in your fridge and see what you've got in there as far as bones for bone broth, veggies for vegetable stock, things like that. I think the other thing was with kids was minimizing choices. I can go for adults too. When I was growing up, back in the day, there was only so many choices for cereal and breakfast. Nowadays, there's hundreds, there's a plethora to choose from. And cereal doesn't just come in a box. Now it comes as a bar. It comes as a shake. It comes in all these forms now. And I think sometimes we can unknowingly develop picky eaters because we say, what do you want? And kids don't know. It's overwhelming. The choices can be just too much. If you say, what do you want? There's 15 choices for breakfast. A 3-year-old they're always going to pick the same thing. So, you got the chicken nuggets, or I want that cereal, because kids can be creatures of habit as well. And they know they're simple. So what I did with my boys, they got 2 choices for breakfast and lunch. That was it. 2 choices a week. And that saved so much money. If you think about it, when you go to a grocery store and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, so-and-so likes that. So-and-so likes that. And you've got, all 7 things in there for breakfast now. And only one eats that, one eats that. When you have just 2 choices, then those are it. So we ultimately had 3 actually. So there would be 2 breakfast choices and the staple was always oatmeal. So there would always be oatmeal in our house. So if you didn't like the 2 choices this week, you could always have oatmeal. And same with lunch. These were the choices for lunch this week, like maybe turkey and Swiss. The other choice was maybe, I don't know, whatever we were having for lunch. Maybe grilled chicken wraps. We would do those a lot. Caesar grilled chicken wraps. And then if you didn't have those, there was always peanut butter and jelly and a loaf of bread. So if you didn't like the go-tos this week, well, next week, put your suggestion in on the menu. And I asked my kids, that got them involved too in caring about the grocery shopping and caring about how we ate everything. What were the 2 choices this week? And they kind of worked together to confer on the favorites. And you could change them week to week, honestly. So it's like, then you're not stuck with, no, we're going to eat this till it's gone. I grew up with that, and you had this endless box that nobody wanted to touch anymore of something, and you had to eat it till it was gone. So, and you're only buying week to week. You're buying fresh, you're buying what you need, you're getting rid of it, that kind of thing. So, that was definitely a huge, huge money saver for our family. And that was those 2 choices, and that was it. And you had your staples. So, and believe it or not, that could literally save hundreds on a grocery bill, especially when you have larger size families. I think the other really big one for me was planning ahead. So if you knew what your week looked like, and you're maybe busy for yourself too, I have friends or women even my age, I do it. If I know I'm going to be out running around, running errands all day, rather than go grab that cup of coffee out or a drink and a snack, or I'll throw mine in my car. So I'll get my little granola bars, or I'll grab my fresh piece of fruit, whatever, an orange, bananas, usually my go-to or something. I bring that with me, and a protein bar, and I get my water bottle, and I get my coffee to go, and I brew my coffee at home. I mean, because then I've just saved myself $5 to $6 at a coffee shop buying something. I saved myself probably $7 to $10 grabbing a snack somewhere, literally a snack. I was somewhere the other day, and a very thin piece of bread with hardly any avocado in the name of an avocado toast cost me $10. So I'm like, save the money, or even an avocado, whatever your lifestyle is, however you eat, just simply plan ahead. And, if you go to a big box store, you can get large things of granola bars and things. You got 3 kids like I did, you throw in 3 bars and you throw in 3 juice boxes. It's a lot less expensive than stopping in a drive-through and getting those things. And I haven't honestly done recent statistics, but interestingly enough, I used to teach classes on meal planning and doing this stuff and money saving and things. And it was, most people had no idea, but the average person spends, and it's probably higher now because prices have gone up, approximately $400 to $600 a month eating out. And I'm sure it's higher than that even now, and depending on the lifestyles. So imagine, imagine what you could do with $400 to $600 a month. And I'm not saying don't ever eat out, but I'm saying, plan it in your week, eat out once or twice a week, splurge, enjoy yourself. But when you do, how much more do you have now to go enjoy the place you really love? Because you've saved some money. In one of the greatest places you can save is in groceries, even in the restaurant world. So owning Victory Pie Company, because I had done this for years before, it actually made me a better businesswoman. We had the most minimal amount of waste you could possibly have in a restaurant. Again, because we used those vegetables and those things that we had in other dishes for stock and things that we put in our soups and our other stuff. We used every bit of what we had. And when the bananas were too brown to put in a fresh banana cream pie, we took them and we turned them into banana bread. I mean, all those little things. So there was little to no waste. And that is key. It made me a better businesswoman. And it allowed me to be profitable sooner than I might have been. The learning curve was much smaller as a businesswoman in that. That was one of those things I took away with me. And I tell people, what's your dream? What's your hey, man, next year I want to take that trip, or next year I want to pay off that credit card, or next year I want to buy that car and I can't afford the car payment. What is it? Imagine if you could put $400 to $600 a month back in your budget. And it's because you did these few, that's just three small things: a meal plan, minimize your choices, and plan ahead. Those 3 small things could save you $400 to $600 a month. Imagine what you could do. You could dream. You could get ahead. Yeah. You could give yourself a raise. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you just made an income. That's huge. That's how I looked at it as a stay-at-home mom. It allowed me to continue to stay at home because of the money I was saving. I think another big one, I am a hardcore coffee drinker. It's I have one vice in life and it's coffee. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. So, and I had friends, and people, when I used to teach these classes, I'd tell them, sit down, go look at your bank card. This is another thing. Just go look at your bank card. And this isn't about making anybody feel guilty or how bad. Go look and see where the charges are, and then add them up. See what goes in a month. And I had one particular person who, she's like, I don't spend that much. I just stopped. Turned out she was spending $350 a month just in Starbucks. And she had no idea. And I said, okay, that's a lot when you think about that's almost $4,000 a year, right? And I said, what if you bought yourself, and because they're not that expensive, especially now, a really nice coffee maker or an espresso maker and your favorite flavored creamers, that would still be less. Go buy yourself one and you make your coffee every morning before you leave the house. You know, she did that. She saved herself $350 a month. And I'm like, it's those little things that you don't realize add up. They can, what is it? Death by 1,000 paper cuts. So, you bleed out a little here, a little there, a little here, and it adds up. And so I know this kind of feels like, ooh, such a serious podcast, but you know what? It is. I mean, we work hard for our money. And there's a part of me that I'm not going to let somebody just take it that easy. I'm not just going to hand it to somebody. I worked hard for it. I earned it, or I've saved it. I want to see it do something for me that's going to make my life better, easier, bless it, whatever. And even if that's a meal out, I'm going to go out and enjoy myself, once a week. My husband and I now, we eat out once a week. That is literally it. We make all our food. It's just the two of us. We can afford to eat out more. But that way, when we do go eat out, we don't look at the prices on the menu. We just go enjoy ourselves because we've saved our money all week and we really have a nice time out, and it's a treat. It's so convenient to eat out, but it's also a lot of money. And I know that sounds weird coming from somebody who owned a restaurant saying, hey, watch how much you eat out. But you know what? When you do go and really enjoy it. Enjoy the staff. Go to a place you love. And that's what I loved about Victory Pie. And we saw every customer that way. You are coming in here. You're spending your hard-earned money in my cafe. We're going to make sure that you feel like it was worth your time and your hard-earned money. And that's how you should feel. That's how it should be when you go eat out. That's how, convenience is great, but it should be worth your hard-earned time. That's how I feel about it. So I think that goes both way, on the side of a business owner and as side of a consumer. I've been both. And I stand by that 100%. So, and even like with us at Victory Pie, we had frozen take and bake pies. If you're busy or maybe you can only plan 1 or 2 nights a week, great. Grab something like that. That's a complete meal somewhere, that is made well and trust. And now all you got to do is pop it in the oven, and it's got your protein, it's got your veggies, it's got your starch, it's got whatever. Throw a salad with it or throw nothing with it. I mean, I still make them at home for my husband and I. we make chicken pot pies. It's a one and done. It's a great one dish meal. But things like that you can just knock it out. But, throw that into your budget for, hey, I know I've got 1 or 2 nights covered this week because we've got those in the freezer even, made ahead, whatever that looks like. So I think those are, like I said, I could nerd out for days. I could tell you 1,000 ways I saved money because, like I said, I could pinch a penny. But those would probably be my top ones. Those are kind of the places that I like to splurge and spend, and also being busy. I'll be honest, when I was running the cafe, I was literally working. My days could be anywhere from 12 to 18 hours a day. And that's no exaggeration. And even though I was around food all day, I didn't eat necessarily, believe it or not. I'd hit a drive-through on my way home, or I could do something. So I totally get it. It's easy to be like, oh, sure, you're in a restaurant, you could just eat. I didn't eat the food necessarily that I served my customers. We were too busy serving customers, making pies, working. So I took that advice. We came home and either still meal planned or we ate quick things. We found ways to save even here too. So I say that totally understanding the life of a busy working mom, businesswoman, anybody really, man or woman, we just get busy and it's hard to do. But if you could just take one day to plan ahead, even if you just do 1 week at a time or 2 weeks at a time and make it easier on yourself, you're going to find that you are more prepared. You've got a little more money in your bank. And when you do go out, you can really enjoy it. It takes less stress on the budget, which is ultimately less stress on you. And I think it's a well-rounded way to live for sure, especially these days. You know, we need every penny we can save.
Yeah, I think that those principles that you went over, being like kind of creating a zero waste meal plan and planning ahead and having days of the week that you plan for leftovers and things like that, having boundaries with your kids on how many options you offer them. Those are true no matter what your skill level is too when it comes to cooking. Because, you know, I just started cooking at home, and historically I've always just eaten out. I was looking at my budget. I was spending about $500 a month just for myself to eat out, which is obscene. And that's on top of groceries or anything else I buy for my house.
Right.
Which is just ridiculous. It's just a ridiculous amount of money when I have food in my house. But cooking has always been such a daunting task for me. And so I'm learning as I go, kind of some of the things that you brought up, like buying things in bulk is so much cheaper. I found that like right now I shop at 2 grocery stores because I know that protein is cheaper at one store than it is the other. So I buy everything, like all of my pantry goods from one store and then all of my protein from a different store. And you just find ways to cut costs like that. But like those things can be learned whatever your skill level is. Like Sheila has been cooking forever and is good at it and knows flavor and knows how to make things taste good out of nothing. I don't know how to do that. I grew up eating vegetables out of a frozen bag that you put in the microwave, and like that's how I learned to cook. But I'm learning now, like some of the easy ways. And like something I just learned recently was I know that if you buy chicken breast in the big old packet that comes with like, I think like 5 chicken breasts in it, way cheaper than buying, you know, the 2 chicken breasts by themselves, even though I will only eat the 2 chicken breasts that week. But I can cook all of those chicken breasts at once in a casserole dish and then shred them and keep them in a Tupperware container in the fridge. And I will put that in everything. I'll make sandwiches, I'll make quesadillas, I'll make casseroles, I'll make all kinds of things with that shredded chicken. And it lasts so much longer. Or I'll buy, you know, ground beef and I'll freeze it. And I like to, you had kind of mentioned having like a zero waste mentality and having a leftover day. I have started to have a 1 day a week. It's leftover day, but it's also like, how do we cook out of everything that we have in the pantry and in the fridge? Right. And I'm not grocery shopping until it's all gone. Like, so whatever we have, that's what we have. And I'm going to learn to make something that I maybe never would have made. And so I've made a lot of like stir fry with random vegetables or like fried rice or whatever, or some kind of pasta dish or quesadillas. Did you know that you can just put whatever you want in a quesadilla? I learned that.
Don't you love it?
I had no idea. I was like, you can put pizza sauce in a quesadilla and cheese and make a pizza quesadilla. Who knew?
Right.
So I'm learning too. And if you're a novice, then welcome to the party. You need a Sheila Blue in your life because Sheila sends me recipes and teaches me how to cook things that actually taste good out of everything in my fridge.
I love that. One thing I love too about what you said, Bailey, is that you don't have to have, you know, a high cooking skill set to even to just start somewhere. And I think one of the things you said, what's great is even something as simple as even vegetables. So in all my meal planning, I learned this too. So a lot of when you buy frozen vegetables, they're actually just as nutritious, if not more, as some of the fresh ones that we get in our store because they're picked at their peak for color and nutrients, and then they're frozen immediately. So you get a lot of nutrients in those. So there's nothing wrong with using a frozen vegetable and putting it in a dish versus a fresh one. And if you don't have time to sit and trim the green beans, you know, and all that, then go buy frozen ones and throw them in there. It's okay. And I love what you said about the chicken breast. You can also take that big pack if you're just you and maybe cook half of them to shred and the other half freeze them in sets of 2. That way you have them for next time for a different flavor of something or however you want to cook, whatever that looks like. But I love that. And thinking ahead where you can and buying in those larger quantities definitely saves money. And it's not rocket science in the sense of, I think that's the other thing. Sometimes we see the recipes or the meal plans, the ones you see online that looks so cool. And there's some random bizarre spice you have to drive 30 miles to go find,
Right.
for it to go in your dish. And it's like, and that's not what I mean by meal plan. I'm talking your basics, your salt, pepper, garlics, you're easy because you can always, again, when you just plan a couple nights a week that are those easy ones, if you like to cook or you want to experiment or you want to try new things, then one night a week, do that. Buy that dish, but now it won't get lost in the shuffle of everything else you bought, and you're much more intentional if you're going to make it and buy it because it's for that thing and for that time. And I think that's a big deal too. So I think it can be overwhelming and daunting and feel, hard to do if you're not as experienced. Some of the best dishes are simple. It's really simple. And if you're using single ingredients like real butter, fresh, your spices, cracked pepper, just even salting food the right way can mean the difference between a great dish and a mediocre dish. I mean, it's the simplest things, or just one little thing of fresh garlic, versus powdered garlic. It's not a hard switch and it's not a complicated ingredient, but I love you can do the simplest things with simple, really good ingredients, and it makes a difference. And, there's another thing for you, really. If you're saving money doing these little things and you want to buy a better quality ingredient, you can, because you're not just trying to get by. If you want to buy that grass-fed beef or you want to buy, organic or something like that, in meal planning, you can afford to a little more if you think you can't, because you're streamlining what you're using and how you're using it. So it affords you the ability to maybe buy a different, level of groceries that you may want to, that you don't feel like you can right now because of your budget.
Yeah, something that I thought of when you were talking about giving the kiddos a couple options. I had read a book a few years ago. I've read it several times now. It's a book called Boundaries, and I recommend it to everybody I've ever met. But it's about drawing boundaries in different areas of your life and in your relationships, and how life flourishes when there's boundaries. Maybe you've heard the analogy or it's not an analogy, it was a research study done where they let a bunch of kids out into like a playground, and the playground didn't have a fence. It was like kind of a big open field, and it didn't have a fence or any walls around it. And all the kids stayed huddled close to the building. And then they took another group of kids, same size, and let them out into that area, but it had a fence around it. And the kids ran and they played and they had a bunch of fun, because boundaries provide safety. They provide structure, they provide freedom. There's freedom within boundaries. And offering your kids choices, but giving them boundaries to work around is such a good lesson for them to learn. And I think for me right now, I don't have kids. I hope to soon, but maybe creating some boundaries in your own life with the way that you structure your meal planning and your cooking and your like eating for the whole month, I think is only a good thing. I think it only provides freedom. The more that I've started to really think about how much I want to spend on food, how I want to get that food. And Sheila, I know you're a big proponent of this, what kind of food I want to put in my body. Those boundaries have provided me with more freedom, with more ease in my life. They make me less anxious. They make me less tired. And so I always thought that cooking was like this big scary thing that was exhausting to think about, or like meal planning was this big scary thing that would take me forever and I didn't have the energy or the time. But really, if I sit down and order groceries for the week and plan out what I'm going to eat, I'm so much less stressed out. than if
Mhm.
I just kind of like fly by the seat of my pants and drive through a bunch
Mhm.
of drive-throughs all week. And I get down with a good McDonald's burger. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
sure.
Like I I love a good McDonald's stop or In and Out. I could do that all day long. But if I really think about what I want to like put into my body and the amount of money I want to spend on it, it actually provides freedom in my life. It doesn't feel like a restriction.
I love that. And that reminds me too of one of the things that we've all heard and we all know, and we've probably all been there at least once, if not more. I've been there way more times than I care to admit, but going somewhere to get food while you're hungry, or even grocery shopping. So even if you're going to be good and go to the grocery store on your way home from work, you're starving. I don't know about you, but I'm like, all of a sudden things that didn't sound good, right? Or I put extra things in my cart that I didn't need or I wasn't going to get because I was hungry when I went there. And there's always that too. And so when you go through that drive-through, whatever, making it a large meal versus our eyes are bigger than our stomach sometimes when we're hungry. And the savings in that way too. That also makes me think of one of the other things I used to do with my kids. And they hated it. Trust me, this didn't come without eye rolls and backlash. However, I notice they do it now and it's really good. So listen up, moms. They'll carry it through their adulthood. It was, so when we did have something like, say they picked cereal. So cereal wasn't a staple. It wasn't like, oh, there's always cereal in our house. Not only is, because it gets wasted. Now it's even more expensive, cereal milk. We also didn't have endless gallons of milk, where they drank, yada, yada. It wasn't like we had a lock and key on it, but, we wanted to be good stewards of what we had. So when we did have cereal, they got to pick 2 flavors of cereal. One, if that was our week. So they got to pick, whatever it was, Honey Nut Cheerios and something else. But the next time they wanted cereal, if there was even one Cheerio left in the bottom of that box, we weren't buying cereal. And I didn't budge at all. So you know how you have that little bit left at the bottom and it goes stale and you end up throwing it away? If you combined all the cereal that got thrown away, you'd probably have a year's worth. So we didn't. It was absolutely a no. And they really wanted cereal, they'd finish it. And then it got to a point though where it became habit. And they knew that if somebody was eating that cereal and there was a tiny bit left, they just put it in their bowl because they weren't going to get it again if we didn't finish it off. And again, it's that no waste. It's the littlest bit, but when you're paying $5 for a box of cereal, you break that down into servings. For every little bit that gets thrown away, those add up. And they add up, in the budget. So even that, I love what you said about the boundaries. And I think that too was another one in them being good stewards of what they had. Nope, this is what's in front of you. This is here. And if we can't use this up wisely, we're not going to get more of it. And we're not going to be given the responsibility of having more. And that's, again, another one of those principles that just carries over into life, not just food. And as a business owner, if I couldn't do with what I had, how would I be able to do with more? And that was something not only I taught my kids, but it was a good lesson for me too. So, yeah.
Yeah, Sheila, I think that's true. I think having boundaries in everything that we do, including cooking, is just, it only makes good things. It only makes good things. And I'm grateful for your input. I feel like I've learned so much from you about how to cook and how to make what I have work, not just in food, but like in life over the last several years. And so I'm glad that we get to talk about it on a podcast that everybody gets to hear. And I should say, for our Texas listeners, H-E-B is where I generally shop for all my stuff, and I order online. I don't go into a grocery store because I know I will spend twice the amount of money if I walk into the store. And I know that there are some things that you have to see in person, especially when it comes to like produce or proteins. But if you can order everything else online and pick it up, I promise it'll save you money. And shameless plug here, but I just got an H-E-B credit card and they give you 5% back on all H-E-B products, which is crazy because I shop there anyway. So that's a shameless plug. H-E-B is not paying us to say that. I just think it's a really cool thing that everybody should have access to. But Sheila, speaking of how to cook on a budget, what is our recipe of the week that we're going to share with our listeners?
Ooh, Our recipe of the week is going to be a greens, Southern style chicken and greens. And it's in a crock pot. So it's super simple. And it's kind of a dump and cook, for lack of a better word, but it's super easy. It's simple. It's just kind of and it's got your mix of your fresh, you're ready to go. So it's got tomatoes, kale, mustard greens. And if you don't like those, pick the greens you like. It doesn't matter. Whatever you like, you can always alter. I think that's another thing that intimidates people in cooking. You don't have to play by the rules. What you like, put that in there. Whatever that looks like for you. So that, and then just some fresh chicken and butter. Oh my gosh. And when it's done, it's the most amazing flavors ever. And it's perfect over rice. And it's one of those ones that'll stretch. It'll stretch over, you might have leftovers. And it's fabulous, especially with this cooler weather like we're having right now. It's one of those yummy kind of comfort foods, and it's got all the good nutrients. Again, I love a one and done. So it's got your protein, it's got your veggies. If you put it over rice or whatever starch you like, you can throw it over that too.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm going to cook it this week and I'll let you know how it goes. But I'll include a recipe card that you can download on our social media page when I post this. So keep an eye out for that. Sheila, thank you for sharing all your thoughts and wisdom. Always appreciated. Can't wait to talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Billy.
Well, Miss Lindy, my Miss Lindy.